Call this Topsham Select Board meeting to order, August 3, 2023, from the Donald A. Russell Meeting Room. Would you all please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance? Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Patty, would you call that roll?
David Douglas.
Here.
Ruth Lyons. Here. Roland Tubbs.
Here.
And I understand Marie Brilliant and Matt Nixon have been excused.
Thank you.
And our town manager is at the head table also.
Thank you, Patty.
You're
I'm
welcome.
stepping all over you. Town manager's report.
Hey, welcome everyone. Nomination papers for 2 select board and 4 MSAT 75 seats are available in the town clerk's office, and they were available as of July 31st. This past Tuesday, a couple nights ago, our public safety department, with the assistance from town staff, hosted National Night Out at the Topsham recreational fields. Saw quite a few people out there. The event was a success, and feedback from Topsham residents was very much appreciated. So thanks to Chief Hagan and the rest of the departments. We've got a lot of positive feedback, and people are wanting to come back for next year and can't wait to see what else we're going to do. A big note, this summer we were fortunate to work with 4 outstanding Bowdoin College interns, Abigail Martin, Karam Setam, Skyla Hong, and Boaz Malakoff, completed important projects that will provide a tremendous benefit to the town. Abigail and Karam conducted a survey and analysis of Topsham employers that will result in planning and resource discussions related to labor, housing, and education sectors. Skyla worked with Topsham Fire and Rescue to develop community outreach information that will promote awareness of Topsham's new community paramedicine program. She also updated content and refined organizational structure to the town's website. Boaz came back for the 2nd year. I think we're doing a good job. He actually called and said, hey, can I come back for a 2nd round? So Boaz is kind of continuing off where he left last year. Boaz drafted new tax acquired property guidelines to ensure compliance with recent U.S. Supreme Court case and recently enacted Maine statutory law. He also helped develop property disposition recommendations for the Topsham Select Board to consider based on these recent changes. They also drafted and updated policies, some of which are requirements for reducing our workers' compensation policy premiums by 5%. So we will be at the highest here. Thanks for their assistance. Abigail, Karam, and Skyla and Boaz will be presenting their work tonight. Skyla, Abby, and Karam will be part of their updates, and Boaz will be featured in your agenda items that are actually on the agenda. And on behalf of town staff, I extend our gratitude for their efforts, dedication, positive attitudes, friendliness, and quality of work. I hope they may visit us in the future to see the results of their work, and all of the staff will miss you, so please come back and at least say hi. I'd like to recognize Wendy Van Dam, who is Bowdoin College's Associate Director for Public Service for the McKean Center. She is here with us tonight in the corner to watch us, and thank you, Wendy, for your efforts in strengthening our partnership with Bowdoin College. That's all I have.
Any questions of the manager? Boaz coming back a 2nd time, that means you're doing the official records forever because you're on an agenda.
I know.
You're never leaving the Town of Topsham's archives. So we've got boards and committee reports and updates. Update on comprehensive plan implementation committee, Susan Ray Reeves, chair.
Hello, everyone. Like say Susan Ray Reeves, 14 Twin Pond Road. Thank you. And I'm trying to figure out how to get fully on here, because part of what I want to do is share with you the map. So that, because I know there were questions, and the map is a good one, it's very clear. So let's see, what do I do? Share screen.
Let's go, Jill.
And I have had this open, I need to actually open.
If you share your entire desktop, then I think that would be good.
Because it's not on. Because it's on the town site. So.
I believe that anything on the desktop will appear, so. Could you go to Safari?
Safari. There, that's it. That's the
Alright,
map.
and then you can also, enlarge the
Thank you.
pages.
I need this generation.
Don't go too far away.
All right, so when we get to that point, I'll point. So on behalf of the sure people, on behalf of the Comp Plan Implementation Committee, I'm pleased to update the Select Board on where things stand with Recode. At our update in May, we told you that we would soon have a draft of the Town Center Recode. We'd have a short video presentation to help people get into the actual code, and that we plan to hold a stakeholder feedback session. The draft code and the video are done and ready and posted on the website. A stakeholder session was held last week, and we're ready 2 weeks ago. And we're ready to move on to the public engagement phase of the project. The timeline provided by Recode consultants Kurt Bishop of Duncan Associates and Leslie Oberholzer of Codometrics shows us having completed phase 2, producing the initial draft code, and entering phase 3, public review of the draft code. Here are some highlights of what has happened and what's to come. Recode Topsham Center Growth Area. During our update in May, we were asked, what is the boundary where the form-based code in rezoning is being proposed? You stressed the importance of being clear about that, and the boundary of Topsham Center Growth Area reflects a priority to be deliberate about growth by focusing on the area where water and sewer already exist, as well as areas where the two goals of mixed-use structures and walkability apply. There is a map included with the materials provided to the stakeholder workshop on July 18th. And that, I think, will help anyone interested to know the exact boundaries of the proposed zoning change. So let's stop for a second, and I will, up on the screen, the map stretches over a couple of screens. So at the bottom of the screen there, you can see in sort of lavender, the lower village. And then in a kind of, I don't know, avocado maybe, is middle village. And then in a darker purple, the area where the town offices are. And over to the left of the screen, in both bright blue and purple, is the Topsham Fair Mall, and that now is divided into 2 areas. Topsham Fair Mall 1, which is the majority of the area, and Topsham Fair Mall 2, where on Park Drive, because that area already feels different, and to sort of keep retail development in Topsham Fair Mall 1, it's smart, I understand, to have Topsham Fair Mall 2 be a separate zone. So then carrying on up, we see what is known as the Crooker site, which I guess is 52 acres thereabouts. And up along Main Street on the other side of 196, that area that is where the town offices are extends just a little bit, because that area kind of resembles that whole cluster. And the areas around it do not, in terms of the school, light industrial, etc. And then off to the right at the top is the annex. And that's an area where probably quite a lot of development will happen. And so it made sense to us to include that in this process at this point. So I hope that's helpful in terms of the, you know, just sort of looking at what's included, where are the boundaries. It follows, I think, parcel lines pretty carefully. It started out being a larger area than that. but we cut some areas out, keeping with that criteria of sticking with areas where there's already water and sewer infrastructure. And where where it makes sense to sort of have mixed use buildings and promote walkability. So, the other part of Recode, the general update and cleanup. The planning board has been reviewing the articles that are part of the update and cleanup aspect of Recode. And this is likely to be completed soon, with a CPIC member attending planning board meetings and a planning board member attending CPIC meetings. Conditions support good communication on the project now. Each of the two sections of Recode are moving into the public review phase pretty much in tandem. The stakeholder workshop. This was held on the Topsham Center Recode on July 18th. It was well attended with about 20, I think more than 20 people attending, mostly in person and a few folks on Zoom. Questions were both specific and wide-ranging, and the committee and staff will review and discuss each of those before moving on. A lot of that is going to be included in our agenda for the upcoming meeting on the 14th. So where are we now? We're planning several public sessions, including workshops and open houses. Dates were given in this update that was provided to the select board. All of them, except for tonight's update, are tentative and suggestive. And they're meant to give you a picture of the current thinking of the committee, staff, and consultants. We hope to hold 1 or 2 listening sessions for the larger community on Topsham Center Recode in August. There is a thought that we have a planning board workshop on Topsham Center Recode. Julie is working on that. I'm not sure exactly when that's going to happen. Our thinking is that if the select board can accommodate a workshop on September 7th, that we're soon thereafter, however that would work. And then between September, October, early November, to continue having an open house opportunities where people can actually, at least one big one where people can actually talk with each other, see visuals of what's being proposed, pose their questions, have some discussion, and get a chance to really get their questions answered. Finally, in terms of our communication and public engagement efforts, that article that was included in the May issue of the Crier really did its job. A lot of people have commented on that. I think it did the job that we intended it to do, which is bring people up to date. And one surprise was that Randall Arndt, who is a resident of Brunswick, he's a retired planning professional and author of a textbook for planners called Rural by Design. He reached out after reading that article and reached out to the planning department. And Julie passed his email on to the committee, and 2 members of the committee, not myself at this point, have met with Mr. Arndt and have had some very helpful, constructive conversations about sort of what his experience has been over the years with form-based code. And he was kind enough to review our code. He had some words of warning, and he found none of those concerns in our draft code. That was a relief. So information is now presented on the town website. We will reach out to people in various ways. We'll work with town staff on what are the best ways to do that. But the short video, and it truly is short, only 12.5 minutes, now posted on the town website with the materials that were for that July 18th stakeholders workshop. It gives anybody who's interested. It moves quickly, but my experience is I needed to listen to it a couple of times. It covers a lot of information, and it's a very helpful way to kind of lead into actually looking at the code and making sense of what you're looking at. So your guidance and feedback are always wanted, and your thoughts about when a workshop might be good for the select board would be welcome.
So my first question, you said again tonight just now, 2 members went and had the meeting with a gentleman. That seems to be something you guys do a lot, isn't it? So it's not advertised where the public can attend and sit in and listen, because it's only 2 members talking to individuals and you're not, so it's not public. I hear that multiple times, and you just said it tonight, it's something you guys do. How often is that happening with this group?
I'm not sure what your concern is, Dave,
If public meetings need to be advertised so the public can attend,
and that wasn't a public meeting.
bingo. Because you sent 2 people and didn't make it a public meeting where people could be a part of it. We talk about an open process, right? But when we hold meetings like that, it's not open, is it?
No,
Right?
no, and I mean, I assume that other committees and boards of the town, in order to function, in order to develop their own understanding of things, have conversations among each other and with other members of the town, with experts, with professionals. That's an assumption I have. Is that wrong?
You're the only group that I hear that from. That these meetings have happened one person, 2 person. Maybe they do, but yours, and they keep it a better secret. But yours it's been multiple times now, it's been a reoccurring here. So it's interesting, I just talk about wanting to be open, make sure everyone's can hear things. And information, whether anyone attends or not. The information that comes back out of those small meetings can't be verified. Right?
Anything that would come back from those kinds of meetings would come back to either a monthly meeting or to a workshop.
Correct.
They would
There's
be
some
on our agenda.
as
and that
secondhand
would-
information, right?
Well, and sometimes it's firsthand information. We had somebody come and do a workshop with us about their experience in Standish with form-based code.
Mhm.
And that was part of our understanding how form-based code has worked in another town. That was, we did that as a workshop. It was public. It didn't make sense to sort of do it any differently. All I can say is there's nothing here that's being done in secret, but we are having conversations. And I can't imagine that that's inappropriate. Any conversation, anything that's learned is brought back to a public meeting. And everything we've done has been public, has been recorded, the minutes have been done. I don't know if that's the case with every other committee, but I hope so. I know that ever since we were asked to do that, we have done that.
Because you weren't for a while, correct?
I didn't know that.
We did it to everybody.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I
told everybody.
didn't know that it was required, and it's like, okay, we're up on that now.
So as far as a workshop, we traditionally do not, we've done some, but it doesn't work to do them the night of a board meeting
Okay,
because there's constraints.
Yeah.
And the last thing you want to be doing is in the middle of something and say, hey, we gotta wrap it up.
yeah,
Or we end up starting at 7:30, 8 o'clock, and then we're here until 10 or 11.
yeah.
So, that's my thought. The rest of the board I don't have anything much else going in September. I can put something out to the group. You want it first, as soon as possible, first week.
I think so.
Yeah,
I think so.
I mean, I don't care if it's the 6th, honestly, at Wednesday night, I'm free, I don't care, it's just, I don't want it on a board meeting then.
Right.
Because I don't want the time constraint if we start talking.
No, that makes sense, makes sense. The 6th of September.
Yeah. Let's say that right now, and I'll get something to the other two to make sure it works. And you check with your group.
With the consultant, yeah, that's the most important thing is the consultant.
And then I would say, yeah, I'm good 5 or 6 that week. And then the next week, I think,
So Tuesday or Wednesday.
yeah, in my opinion.
I'm fine.
Okay,
Still,
yeah,
after that,
yeah, I know after the week after gets tough, but
Okay.
yeah. So,
I would really like to get some guidance on this.
yeah,
You know, Topsham has, I mean, the way Topsham is governed, there's a lot of committees and boards. And having conversations with folks who have taken those jobs on of being involved on a volunteer basis. I've been approaching that as conversations with those people are,
well, I think when you start to bring multiple people is where I start personally.
yeah,
I start to get a little, if you say, we're only, you know, if you went and had a conversation, every one of the 5 of us have a conversation at any moment.
right,
I don't recall a time where I've gotten together with anybody else and had a conversation about anything. Because everything we do specifically in this board is public.
right.
And that's how I approach. So it's something I've heard multiple times and I don't hear from others. Maybe you just need to be quiet about it. But when I start hearing 2 of us win, you know, it catches me a little bit. You know, breaking off and when
Just to be purely transparent,
and that's only mine. I'm not saying this from the board. It caught my thought.
no, and I would love to hear from others. My thinking about that is that's part of our outreach process, letting people know sort of what's going on so that people, when an announcement comes along, there's gonna be, you know, a workshop on such and such. Very often people are so busy, the announcement comes along, oh, I'm gonna go, and then they don't. But with outreach, and those are conversations, those are sometimes one-on-one, but in the case of the 2 people who met with Randall Arndt, they both live near each other and they're very helpful in supporting each other's work on the committee.
Yeah.
So, I mean, there's absolutely nothing that would ever happen decision-wise or proposal-wise that doesn't come back to a totally public forum. I give you that reassurance.
Yeah, no, just,
Yeah, I
next
hear
time
you.
just say
Yeah.
one of us.
Yeah,
My one question, stakeholders 2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
So you still need what needs to be done to bring that information forward?
that meeting has been recorded.
Yeah.
And we're forming our agenda for the next meeting, which is gonna be on August 14th.
Okay.
So we're gonna allocate a big chunk of that meeting to talking about those comments and questions. The consultant's gonna be with us. She's not always available. And so she is on that regular monthly meeting. We have the opportunity, if we need it, to have our regular monthly workshop the next day, but she won't be able to be with us. So that will be the sort of, I'm hoping that we can get our minds around all of those questions, at least to some extent, and see where we go from here.
So do you envision it? You know, you got a series of questions
Yeah.
and once you talk it out through the group, you'll put together a document that said, you know, listing the questions and listing responses of whether, no, this is why we went this way,
Yeah.
or yes,
Or
we think this is.
further consideration will be given to this,
Yeah,
you know.
because I know we did that with our neighborhood meetings as we had, you know, we didn't always have an answer for people because sometimes people ask and say stuff but we got a document and the staff looked at it, you know, maybe it was a public works thing, maybe it was a dump issue.
Yeah.
And the staff made sure that the answers were right. I just want to make sure people can say, all right, this group had this.
Yeah.
You know, have a document to sit and read.
Yes, and one of the
And it'll
things,
continue through other meetings.
right,
staple.
and make it available.
Yeah.
One of the things that happened is there were a couple of people who came and offered comment, and of course, we ran out of time. And a couple of people said, I will put those comments to the planning department staff.
Yeah.
And one person has done that, you know, at length, and we're collecting those in a file so that we can have a more systematic and careful approach to that. I hope there were at least a couple of other people who had comments that they said they would, you know, bring back.
Yeah, because I think it'd be helpful as you go to the rest of the public. You know, I know I'm not gonna go back and watch it 3 hours, whatever length of time you guys had meetings and questions back and forth. But if I can look at a document that has 12 questions and I go to the next one.
Yeah.
And maybe it saves a question, maybe it's, boy, that was a good idea. How come you didn't act on it?
Yeah.
So I think having,
Or this is why
yes,
we
yes.
did what we did rather than what you're suggesting.
Yeah.
You know, yeah. Yeah, we'll try to make all of that very available and transparent.
Would it be out with a document like this? Could it be, or is it just totally gonna be on the website?
I don't know. What are you suggesting that we,
I think this is very helpful. So
yeah,
I would
Yeah.
like to see that, like there's certain things I'm reading here
yeah,
that I'd like to see elaborated on.
okay,
And it's okay to go on the website, but I just like to look at, so if I have that before me, what people have asked, and what people thought,
right, right.
and the diversity of the people that were there.
Mhm. And this was just a start, so we're
Right.
hoping to bring a
Yeah.
lot more people in. I honestly don't know, Ruth, we'll
Yeah,
think
okay.
about that. I think I think it's important to reflect each, and some questions are gonna overlap, but we'll do our best to document every question, every comment, every opinion, and some kind of response to that.
Sure, yeah,
And I
thanks.
don't know if it'll be pretty like that, but.
Well, it doesn't have to be, it's just bulleted,
Right,
maybe, or
yeah,
caps,
But to
or
make it more readily
Right, but
available than on the
it doesn't
website.
have to be like this.
Yeah. And that's, by the way, those are the slides that if you listen to that 12.5 minute presentation, she talks you through that. And there may be some information that answers some of that.
Have you? So as I flip through here and, you know, there's likes and dislikes. So when this comes, this may be too, you may not have given this thought. Will we be voting on this in a modular form? Or will it be up or down vote on Rico and Thompson? Because there's a lot of things in here, you'll never get me to raise my hand in favor of it, and I'd vote to kill the whole thing.
Yeah,
But if it was modular, I might be, okay, I understand the reasoning for that in the lower village. But
Maybe I can address that one. I think the problem if we did things modular is all this has to be written and interwoven.
Yeah.
So if we just pick some parts and not others, then we're gonna have a code that's a mess. So I don't, maybe we vote conceptually and then maybe we end up with 2 town meetings for this. One says, these are the pieces we want, and then we have to go back and get the experts to actually weave those together in a way that makes sense. But I think short of doing it in 2 steps, I don't think we can do it modularly because we'll end up with a piece of code missing or something that doesn't match.
but, and I'm just answering off the cuff, but I think the purpose, Dave, of, you know, the open house sessions and any of the workshops is to get the feedback on those pieces that you're seeing that are problematic for you. And that maybe that's part of an information piece, or maybe it's something more than that, but to get the feedback, and if there's reason to make some changes, there'll be changes before the final. And as Mark said, it's important to have the whole one piece together so that the town has, you know, yesterday and tomorrow, there's
Right.
a full piece of code. for the town.
There's just one more thing, Susan.
Yeah.
There's always people that will come to the workshop, or they won't read the website, or they won't read the prior, or they won't. So they get to town meeting. And then they pose the question. And then it gets heavily debated. And in code, you gotta vote it up or down, right?
Right.
So I'm just preparing you. This happened many times,
Yeah.
and so there's always those people say they're uninformed, we don't inform them, we don't, you know, so, and even with your workshops, it's gonna be the same,
Right.
you know, so. Unfortunately, I agree that they should be, but they don't.
Well, and we'll do our best.
Yeah,
to-
I know
to,
you will.
know, to reach everyone and have that exchange
Mhm.
well ahead of the town meeting. And not everybody will agree. I mean, I've been to enough town meetings now to know that process.
Debate.
So, yeah,
Thank you, Susan.
okay, thank you.
Next up, we have update for Bowman College interns, summer projects, Abigail Martin and Karam Sunam.
Well, let's say on the record that my last name is Sutam, but you can call me wherever you like.
From here on out, you are phenomenal.
Thank you. Abigail and I would first like to thank the town of Topsham for the opportunity. We are, with every interaction, every place we've been to, and every person we talked to, I think we've learned quite a lot. We became informed citizens, and we did grow above the town as well. Degrees.
I definitely agree.
Say it better than Brenda.
Yeah, I'm fine.
So a little bit about what else I did in terms of policy. I took a look at the town of Topsham's police town hall harassment policy. Specifically, I added on a section on what it is for the defining racism and acts of retaliation, just further defining it for the sake of clarity.
And we all kind of worked on different policy types that were drafted. I worked on the return to work after injury policy. And before we get into our project, which is the Topsham Town Employment Survey, I want to talk a little bit about what we did as interns. A lot of you have probably heard from Derek. We spent a couple weeks touring the different departments to learn about the different departments within the town. And this was really important because I feel that if we had just worked on our projects, we wouldn't be able to know about all the different functions of the town and how these departments work together to really help the town operate. And so I think that it made it a very unique experience, a very fun experience. There's a lot of climbing ladders, riding in the loader truck, a lot of different experiences that I feel like a typical intern would be able to experience. So we're really thankful for that. And Karam and I worked on our town employment survey, and so we'll be presenting that today.
Right, so in this survey, we took a look at we surveyed most or not however this we could find around Topsham. We categorized them first into the different categories that you see here. Just broadly, we did it specifically so that the data became clear and it got clumped together. So we have automobiles, we have business services, which is defined as individuals providing a service and not a product. We have food services, we have government, which is more so MSAT 75 and not the Topsham Town Hall. We had health services, we have maintenance, retail, and supply of material distribution. And so the purpose of this whole project is that we came to the problem that ever since 2020, Maine has experienced labor and housing shortages. And so from that, we wanted to analyze the relationship between housing prices and labor and crisis. We probably want to find the relationship between the two, as that we don't think these entirely separate problems, rather we find it to be very much connected. And so our questions for our broad sum purpose was listed here. Is there a correlation between housing shortages and unfilled positions? How many entry-level unfilled positions are there in Topsham? what industries are struggling to find workers, and is there a need for affordable housing in Topsham to house workers? Based on these, we then narrow them down into the questions that we'll find in this slide. We went around to different businesses and provided them with these questions ahead of time. Sometimes we'll just ask them in person. Number one, how many employees do we employ? Number two, what is the starting wage for an entry level position? Number three, how many employees do you need to maintain normal operations? When we mean normal operations, we mean usual operations right now, not to expand and not to downsize, just normal operations right now. And then number four, are you fully staffed? If it came out that they are not fully staffed, we'll ask them how many positions are unfilled. And then furthermore, how many of these positions need require experience or specific skill sets. Some of these skill sets might be a CDL license or specialized skills like a mechanic school or trade school or something else. So Abigail and I firstly, at the start, first day and second day, we went out around the area around here and asked businesses to talk to the general manager. When that ran dry and we particularly didn't want to walk further than a couple of miles and it became really rainy, we opt for a more indirect approach. We called them, we found their contact information on the website or through the town manager, there's Strapchansky, and then we talked to them. You will also find. Okay, we also had a letterhead provided by Derek Strapchansky.
You can say Derek.
Derek. I apologize. We had a letterhead by Derek explaining what it is we're doing and then providing the questions as well to make sure that there are no misconceptions about what exactly this project was.
So here are some general findings that we found across all businesses. So we contacted a total number of 169 businesses and received 105 responses. And the total number of workers in surveyed employers was 2,200 employees. And we saw that the average job earnings across all employers surveyed was $35,842. And average hourly wage for an entry-level position was $17.23 per hour. And the very significant number that we saw was the number of unfilled positions that we saw in our survey. And that was 229 unfilled positions. And this is primarily entry-level positions across all these businesses that we saw. So to kind of understand this number, we delved more into the industry-specific unfilled positions. And I'm going to highlight some of the important things that we found within this data. So I'll just go across the chart and kind of talk a little bit to each type of industry. The automobile industry has about 22 unfilled positions. And the significant part about the automobile industry is that there needs to be a lot of skilled labor for these entry-level positions. So that includes mechanics, people with vocational education. And so there's a lot of people who can't find those skilled workers, and that accounts for that large amount of unfilled positions. Business services has a slightly low amount of 16. They have a pretty average wage, and from what we saw, they can maintain business with a pretty low amount of employees. That's just kind of a general finding. In food services, they have a slightly larger number of 37 unfilled positions, but this number also kind of differs depending on whether it's a fast food restaurant or if it's a sit-down restaurant. If it's a sit-down restaurant, typically they might pay a little bit lower, but we have to take into account tips that they might be receiving. But they're also able to find more workers. The most unemployed workers we found was specifically in the fast food industry. And although they might be seeing that they're paying them a little bit higher, they aren't getting tips. Government, I wanted to highlight that specifically MSAD 75, there's only one town position. And that was public works that we saw. And then government, we initially had that including post office and the Department of Motor Vehicles, but we weren't able to get data for that in this finding. So specifically really MSAD 75. And the positions that are open here are CDL licensed bus drivers, are ed techs, which are teachers requiring about 90 hours of experience and education. And the last one is, there's drivers. the accountant, sorry, that's what I was going to highlight, that there was the accountant that made the wages. The wages are very high because of this accountant position that kind of made the wages specifically very high for this sector. Health services has a surprisingly low number, but it's a lot of support staff or providers, so patient services representatives, and so they're having a hard time finding those. Maintenance has the lowest number with 7, but that's primarily because it's a lot of independent landscapers and people who kind of run the business on their own. And so they don't really hire people. It's just kind of, they have maybe a couple employees. Sometimes it's a family business. It's just a very low number. Retail has one of the highest, and then also supplier material. We just found those are the 2 highest with unfilled. So to summarize this data and to really understand how we are thinking about using this data in the future is we saw that in 2022, there was a Camoin study done, and we kind of like reviewed that Camoin study that was done called the Market Analysis of Topsham's Commercial Corridors. And in this Camoin study, they saw that the household income needed to afford housing or the living wage is about $65,000. But this was before a lot of the inflation and economic conditions we see today, so we assumed that it's a lot higher. From our data findings, we found that the entry-level position is about $35,000. So there's a big difference between how much is needed for a living wage and the entry-level position income we found. So from finding this, we wanted to highlight a couple future considerations. So the first one is new businesses. New businesses can use this data when they're coming in to better understand how their business may be impacted, how many unfilled positions they might have when coming into the town. Housing is a wide range. There's a lot of questions considering housing. They can use this data to better understand possible affordable housing initiatives, understand what price points they should be putting housing, and use the Camoin study and our data to understand how much housing there might be needed. Another consideration is training for skilled positions like mechanics, CDL licenses, teachers. There might be necessary to have more initiatives to help train for skilled workers. And the final consideration is childcare. Their childcare costs are very high, and it leads people to 1, not seek employment, and 2, just quit their job in general because they can't afford childcare. And so this data is really important for all of these considerations, and we hope that it will be useful. And the last thing that we found really useful is now we have about 169 contacts across businesses, and we did not have that before. So that's really important for Topsham. So thank you so much. If you have any questions, we're very open.
I got 2 questions. You had said, back to how many employees do you need to maintain normal operations? Did you happen to ask, is it the new normal where places that used to be open till 9, 10 o'clock at night are now shut at 6? So are they looking at, when you asked that question to be normal, which way did you to build back or
Sure. This is specifically relevant to the food industry, industries. So we ask, as of right now, what exactly, how many employees you need. But what that also implies is when they talk about, oh, we don't need any more, is that my initial thought was that I thought there were going to be more unfilled positions in the food services. But upon asking more questions about, let's say the Romero's pizza.
Oh, yeah.
Romero's pizza, they said that they changed their service hours quite drastically. So that implies that they changed it because they couldn't find the labor. And so from that, I think the lack of data could tell us something as well.
And then the last question I had, and maybe it's, you don't recall, but so looking at the Camoin number, $65,000 to afford housing, was that purchased housing? Or is that, I mean, because rental and purchasing are 2 different, is it?
Yeah, you want me to elaborate on that?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so we looked at 2 studies, well, they did. One is the Camoin report that we're all familiar with. And then there's an MIT survey done, kind of modeled Maine, and it went into living wage calculations on what it would be. So if you were a family of one living in a house. It showed what it would take, what a living wage would be if you had 0 dependents, 1, 2, or 3 dependents. It also showed if you had a household of 2 with 1 person working, what that living wage would be for those living dependents, and then 2 people in the household or wage earners for the same amount of kids. But the important point that it brought up is none of this was calculated, all of it was calculated prior to, or, the inflationary pressures which we have now resulted in where we are for the economy. So what's interesting about all of this is, for instance, within the living wage, you have transportation costs. Transportation costs, you would assume is just having a car, but it also includes maintenance, gas, that sort of thing, as well as housing. So I think it's what you can afford for housing to live. So in general, it would be the rent as well, or if you had to purchase something, that would include everything that goes into having a house.
Because the reason I ask is I would be surprised 2 entry-level people could afford to buy a house, but it looks like they could if this was talking about a purchase. Or is that really talking rental? So, because that's showing about $71,000 for 2 people. Let's say it was a husband and wife or whatever it was. I mean, it shows that they could afford, but I'd be surprised they could afford a house in Topsham to purchase.
Yes, and so when they took this project on, because we didn't have the data to begin with,
Right.
which was really important for us and to talk about future considerations. You can go so many different places with the data that was a result of this survey, even come to housing. Even if we built housing, this is just one of the things that could come up. How many do we need? But that doesn't mean if we built the housing that these vacancies would be filled by people taking those vacancies.
Yeah.
But I think within conversation, they had the pleasure of talking to John Hodge, who's the executive director for the Topsham Housing Authority, on pretty much the market for housing right now in this area. During that time, we brought up as well that, we use a national website like Zillow that takes in data from most of the MLS and everything else. There were only 7 rentals below $1,800 between south of Freeport, north of that. One of which would probably fit, what we're talking about here. So it is an issue, they're trying to draw some correlations to vacancy housing. One of the things they brought up in this too, that wasn't discussed in any rabbit holes with data, is, with companies such as MarketBack that come into Topsham, claiming that there's gonna be 300 jobs filled. And we already have 225 vacancies, most of which kind of fall in that sector. Are they taking people? Is there a lateral move from the business that's currently in Topsham? Or will we be taking people outside, probably within commuting distance? That would affect us regionally, which the Maine study kind of takes that regional data. So it's just great information we didn't have that can be used in discussions as we talk about, the future of Topsham. There would be businesses coming in like they had highlighted. If I'm coming in as a fast food restaurant and I have data like this, that might be very important for the city. Because it will determine whether or not I want to move here as a business, or maybe it's a good spot to be.
So in this case, if you're talking about individual employees, I think it'd be, for me, it'd be more helpful to see this expressed in terms of monthly income and monthly housing expense. I think it's easier to basically grasp, what the gap is. Like, you can basically tell this group or this cohort in their analysis is probably going to be most adversely affected.
One thing we looked at too, is that, the living wage, the rule of thumb is don't spend more than 33% of your gross income on housing.
Right.
As you can see, this does not apply. It's more like 60-70%. So.
And we discussed in the data summary that I gave to y'all, there's kind of more, I discussed a little more in depth, like the nuances of like buying a rental and things like that. We had Boaz actually did a study with the apartments rentals last year, and we saw that it was about $1,000 per month. And we probably think that it's going to increase in the further years, but or it probably has increased, up to today. But I kind of mentioned that in the study, and then also kind of a summary findings more in depth in that data summary.
I have a couple of comments, and thank you. I think you did a great job and gives us great insight. there's a lot of things that at this moment that are impacting businesses. It isn't just employees.
Yes,
There's all kinds of pressures,
yes.
particularly in the last 7 years,
Mhm.
and it gets worse and worse. And housing, part of the problem with housing is the cost to build a house. And that means, or apartments, it could be up to $200,000 worth of permitting.
Mhm.
That's where I think we need to start on some of the things, is to bring some of these costs down, because that adds a lot to whether a developer is gonna develop an apartment building that's more affordable. Everything like that is impacting the housing. It's not just supply and demand.
Yeah, we definitely consider that. We actually talked to John Hodge about that. He
Yeah.
kind of mentioned how creating even affordable housing isn't so affordable anymore. And so we definitely consider that. You knew that we were gonna go down a rabbit hole, thinking about all the different factors, but it was definitely really important to consider. Yeah.
If I may, we are fully aware that there are so many more factors.
Right.
At play here than we're capable of kind of measuring and thinking of, but we just wanted to focus on these two, like housing and labor, just so that simplifying the data to make it kind of applicable and usable at the moment.
I think you did a great job.
Thank you so much.
I just have one comment on your bar chart.
Oh, yes.
I think it would help relative to this analysis, if you put for each one of those industries, the total number of employees in that group, then you can arrive at what the data to is.
I think it might be in the data summary. I only could put so much in this slideshow. So I kind of do a rundown. I put industry specific on each, Duncan talked about like how many employees there are, just to have better numbers.
So which one had the highest vacancy rate, do you recall?
I think with highest vacancies needed or unfilled positions of a supplier and material, they had about 57.
But I think that if some of the restaurants didn't change their timing or change their hours, I really expect that the food services would kind of jump up to this place.
Great work.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys. We get next, Skyla is going to give us an update on the paramedicine program and the website update. This is for you, Susan, website update. She's gonna teach you things like you asked for.
All right, so good evening, select board. My name is Carolyn Hahn, and as you know, I'm one of the interns with for Nelson. So I also wanted to say that this internship has been amazing so far. And as Abigail and Karan has already elaborated on, being able to view all the different departments of the town, as well as being able to go on outings to different quasi municipalities, it just opened the door to so many new experiences and new insights about the town and about government that I could not have imagined was possible before. And also, because of that, not only was the internship incredibly fun and super enjoyable, but it was also very informative, and I'm very grateful to be here. So today, I'm going to present about the projects I've done over the summer with the town, which is primarily with the community paramedicine program and with updates to the website. So starting off with my first project, which was on the community paramedic program. As you all know, the Topsham Community Paramedicine Program is a year-long program funded by Maine EMS, and it has already started on July 1st. And essentially, it entails a community paramedic visiting patients in home and providing services. And because of the services the paramedics provide, patients won't have a need to call 911 or emergency services, thus reducing the inflow of patients to hospitals and EMS providers. And in order to sign up for this program, you must be a Topsham resident, and all Topsham residents are eligible for the program. It is also completely free for them, which is great. And in order to sign up, all they need is a referral from a healthcare provider or from a physician. And the physician does not have to be in Topsham. only the residents have to Topsham. And after they notify the physician of their need for the community paramedic program, the physician will then submit a referral to the paramedic, who will then contact each patient and schedule a meeting time. And these are just some services the community paramedic provides, such as post-op follow-ups, emergency room visit follow-ups, medication reconciliation, and so on and so forth. So all these things are fairly simple, and the patients who need them would have gone to a doctor otherwise to do these simple checks. So by contributing to these things, the paramedic will be able to give more accessible healthcare to citizens while reducing the inflow to hospitals. Now, how I contribute to the program. So everything you heard, I researched that, and I also put all that information in a brochure. So I designed a brochure. I researched different websites of different places that had this program. I noted the information they put on their websites and on their brochures, and I have added it on the brochure that you see before you today. And additionally to that, I also created a community paramedic webpage, which is also part of my other project with the website. So I put all the information on the brochure onto the webpage. I also elaborated on that information. So patients or residents who receive the brochure, they can go on to the webpage, which I have listed a link on, the QR code on the brochure. And they will be able to see more detailed information. And also the healthcare providers, the physicians, they will also be able to go onto the website and be able to see more information on that as well. And along with that, I drafted a letter about the community paramedicine program, which was then approved by the town manager and was sent to local healthcare leadership. And how we did that was we would send it to the top, and that way it would be able to trickle down to other parts of healthcare so that more people would be exposed to this program. So this here is a screenshot of the community paramedicine website right now on the town webpage, on the town website. So there's an about us section, which is a little bit longer than one on the brochure. There's also information about eligibility services, and you can't scroll down, but there's also information on how to sign up, as well as information on the qualities of Elizabeth, the community paramedic. Next up, the other project that contributed was updating the website. So this wasn't one specific thing, it was more overarching. So what I did at the beginning was I went into every single page on the website, and then I wrote down everything that caught me off guard or didn't look quite right. And then, which sad to say, was a little bit.
I was gonna say, so she had time to do 2 projects?
And so during the following weeks, I just followed up on everything and did that. So you all probably know what the website looks like, but it is basically categorized into different groups, which includes government, departments, community, and this how do I section. So these are some of the highlights on each of the sections. So for the government, I wrote an explanatory blurb on town meeting because when I first went on the page, it was a bit disorganized. It seems like links were just tossed on there. There was, for some reason, like annual reports, and I was a little bit confused on that. So in order to clean that up, I made a separate page for annual reports. I wrote a little explanation on what the town meeting form of government is, and read a citizen's guide to town meeting, was able to put some of that information in there. And that way, when citizens go onto the town meeting page, they will be able to understand it better and not be so intimidated. And hopefully it might convince 1 or 2 people to come to some more special town meetings, which would be great. And then other than that, I edited the boards and committees page to be more consistent. So that was also a little bit scattered, but I just did some formatting changes, made the dates and locations consistent. And then I also changed the Brunswick Topsham Bridge Design Advisory Committee page simply to Topsham Brunswick Bridge because the committee has already disbanded, I believe, because the bridge is starting to be built. There's no one to be advised on. And then, other than that, I notified the planning director of broken links, and I myself restored or deleted broken links. And then I just did some general formatting problems like grammar, font spacing, email links. So this is an example of what I did. So this is the old Brunswick Topsham Bridge page. As you can see, there's images on either side, and it's also in present tense. So what I did was delete a couple pictures and then move them to the side so that it's a little bit less constrained. I also added a couple of links here, the recommendations from the DSC. And then I also changed it to past tense because this information is still good to keep around. Okay, so for the department section, I thought that it would be a good idea for each section to be consistent in formatting while also having a little bit of personality. So for each section, I either drafted an about us section for the departments that didn't have one, or I asked the department head to provide an about us section. And also I asked for each department to provide a picture on their webpage so that people who visit would have a general feeling of the Topsham atmosphere as well as the atmosphere of each department. And in order to do that, I went to each department head to ask permission to make changes and as well as ask for ideas for these changes onto the website. Other than that, I also reorganized the staff directory and police roster web pages to look better. I hid or deleted unnecessary outdated information and included information as was necessary. And I changed general formatting like in the government section, such as if there was a web page that had too little information in the main section and too much information on the sidebars, I would just move the information from the sidebars to the main page so that it would be more balanced. And also I moved all the pictures from the left to the right because it kind of looked ugly on the left. And then I put fonts, I changed font spelling and grammar and other things. So this is an example of a page I changed for the code enforcement office. So as you can see here, there in the old section, there is no about us page and there's this picture, but it doesn't really show much about Topsham or the code enforcement office. And in this section, I added an about us section. Tom, he provided that to me. And then I also added a very nice picture here so that it would be able to Topsham residents could go on and feel welcome.
Skylar, what was the picture of?
It's the code enforcement officer's assistant, or it's actually Mark Walton's dog.
Good inspection.
And then as well as for the directory, as you can see in the old format, they were listed alphabetically, but it was by each person and not by department. So I just went and made it by department. I included the title of the department as well as the title of the officer, and then listed the email and phone number underneath as is in the old section. Other than that, in the other section, I updated the business directory with a couple new businesses. Abigail and Karam provided me with a few businesses that requested an update during their survey. And there was also some survey. Yes. So there was also some survey information that the town manager provided to me. And also there used to be a how do I section of the website, which I changed to resources and links. And then I grouped the links into different categories because before it was all just one mass of links and was not exactly easy to navigate. And separate from both the website and from the community paramedic program, I updated the slip trip and fall policy. So I more clearly updated what slip trips and falls were, as well as the conditions for which they occur. And I also fixed some general grammar and formatting in that as well. So this is, the old resources webpage. As you can see, it's titled How Do I, which is also grammatically correct because the question mark should not be there. And then it should be in a list. So I changed that for a little bit before I make a new name. As you can see, it's just one mask. So here, it's still not as great as I would like it to look, but still, it's more navigationable. I don't know if that's gonna work, but.
Just put it up there with the question mark.
Yes. So as you can see, it's grouped in things such as elections, licenses, parks and recreation, and so on. And that is all for now. So, would anyone have any questions for me?
Did we pay 75 digits to go?
And she should be working for that.
Yeah. exactly. No.
Did a great job.
Yeah.
I think it's a big improvement.
Thank you.
Big well factor.
Amazing. All
Yeah,
right,
it
thank you
was,
so much.
that website, yeah, that was a mess.
And how long did they give you this?
Like. like
6 weeks.
Yeah, 6 weeks or so.
4.5.
Okay. Definitely not a consultant because we're 10 times nuts.
Next year you should get someone to take care of our phone system and messaging, so.
Actually, they sat on a bunch of meetings that we've had recently about that. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So Boaz will be on a, yeah, he'll be on the agenda items, but first, before, we'll assume Boaz is gonna do a great job too, but want to say thank you every year that we have this program. It's great for the town because there's always something that needs to be taken care of, but there's nobody available to do it, and things that could help the public or help staff or us, and something like the website, and it helps everybody, whether it's staff or ourselves. We greatly appreciate the amount of work that's being turned in and produced and handed over. It's amazing for the town, and it's something, Topsham strives to provide services, but not be overbearing in its services and who we have. So having you guys, able to check some boxes to help us it fits how we like to operate as a community. Thank you. Public comment? Anyone have correspondence? Anyone adjusting? Approval of the minutes of the regular select board meeting, July 20, 2023. So move.
Second.
Good, because, all in favor? No public hearing, no unfinished business. We are on to the big stuff. Consideration any appropriate action to accept a bid for a plow truck approved at town meeting. Come on down, Dennis.
Good evening. In our capital budget this year, we funded a replacement for a 2008 plow truck. We've been out to bid. The results of the bid is there in front of you. We're recommending the low bid for a Freightliner at $273,080. I share with you in my memo that it is over that line item in our capital budget, but as we talked about it during the budgeting process this year, we'll keep track of that so that the overall capital won't go over. So as we move forward,
The one thing I'll say, this is an example of what we did last year and a half of having the reserve account for public works and public safety. It's not a line item necessarily, but it was an estimate within the things that you had budgeted for this year. So like Dennis said, we'll just keep track, make sure we don't go over it.
What was the number you were thinking, Dennis?
45. The big jump is in the steel cost. The plow, the body on that truck. The truck went up some, but the big jump was in the steel cost.
Any questions?
And I thought it was just to share with you, I think it's interesting to see that, we're gonna, if it's approved tonight and we order it, we won't see it until next summer.
Did you guys interview them for their job shortages in the plow truck manufacturing
They
facilities?
actually sat in on the bid.
Yeah.
It was over the point, but.
So I'll make a motion that we accept the bid from Freightliner of Maine, 273,080.
Okay.
Okay, motion Dan seconded, all those in favor? Thank you.
Super.
Thanks, Dennis. Consideration any appropriate action to purchase a police cruiser. Chief.
Evening, Mark Hagan, Chief of Police. So we budgeted for one Ford Cruiser this year. We put out a bid request to 6 dealerships. 2 didn't get back to us. 2 got back to us and said they don't have anything available and would have to wait until the fall, maybe early winter, when they could try to order a 24. One dealership had a couple of black and whites and a blue car, but we don't really want to change our color scheme right now. And there's one dealership that had one Ford Cruiser available right now. And that was Quirk Ford out of Augusta. It's a gas powered Ford SUV, just like the other cruisers. And price after trade-in is $42,814, which is within our allotted budget. And we would like to request that we purchase that one. They've been holding on to it for 3 weeks for me, so I'm hoping for a yes.
Chief, what do we have to do? Do we need to take a year and double budget vehicles so we can get in on earlier buys by these dealerships so we can not have to wait for a new 24, 6 months early?
That's a great question, and here's the reason I don't know the answer. Last year, Ford said in the fall that they were gonna do a whole nother build on 20 last year, would have been 23s. And then at the end, they canceled it all. And so all kinds of PDs were scrambling, grabbing any kind of car they could think of and buying. So there's a real serious issue right now with all the big dealerships, not the dealerships, the automakers. And we, a couple of dealers that I spoke to said they're not even sure Ford will follow through with what they're saying they're gonna build later on this year. So they're fairly concerned, and they're also afraid the price is gonna go up. A lot of dealers are now, or a lot of police departments are switching to different vehicles, whether it's a Chevy Tahoe, which is a much larger SUV, people looking at Dodges and so forth. Problem is, we've spent at least my first 3 years here getting to where we have one uniform cruiser.
Yeah.
So all the equipment can mix and match. So I don't really want to jump unless we have to. I would rather stay with a Ford. We're only doing 1 and 2, 1 and 2. We're getting by. So for right now, I'd rather kind of ride this out a little bit and see where we go.
So I'm gonna I'll vote and approve, but I just want to keep asking. So over 25 years here, Ford had the Crown Vic and all of a sudden they fold up and then, the nation goes away from the Crown Vic and then you go to the Capri and that folds up and goes away. Do you think and then everyone hated the Dodge, so nobody wanted the Charger, but do you think we're kind of at a point where Ford's saying, yeah, we're getting out of the cruiser business and we're all gonna be doing this again?
The dealerships that I was speaking to are a little confused about what's going on. They're frustrated because all the big automakers right now are trying to force everybody to a purchase order system. What they want to do, and I've heard this from multiple dealers, is they want to get to the point where anybody that wants a car, whether it's you folks, us, will have to order it and they'll build it. They're trying to cut their overhead down. They want to force the dealerships to have maybe a dozen cars, so if you get in a crash, you'll have something there, but if not an emergency, they're gonna force everybody to start just ordering it ahead of time. So the dealerships are really frustrated, they're a little nervous and trying to figure out what's going on. So that's kind of a long answer to, nobody really is sure what's going on here. Ford will try to get out of it. If so, it's gonna be a little bit of an issue. The Tahoes are a lot bigger. And I've talked to some agencies that have gone to them and they're going back to Ford, even though Ford has had some issues for a couple of years. Because if you're in a municipality like this, it's a little tough sometimes to turn those vehicles around quickly. Some law enforcement agencies are trying trucks and they're going to pickups, but same issue. And what they're finding is you can put any kind of tarp you want or hardcover on the back, dust and dirt is still getting in there. and their equipment's not being held up very well. So we got some issues potentially in the future here.
I just don't understand, this has been ongoing for 25 years where people just jump out of the business when they've got this captured audience.
Yeah.
And it seems like we're going there again.
And
You know,
it started with the agencies having trouble with the hybrids
Yeah.
and some that have gone to electric cars that are trying to get out of that and go backwards. So, you know, people are purchasing things that haven't been proven yet, and they're paying the price with it right now.
All right, I'm done asking questions. Sorry.
Second.
Oh, I'll make, hold on.
I know.
I'll make a motion that we approve, purchase from Clark Ford for $47,395 minus the trade-in for a total of $42,814. Motion seconded, all those in favor? Unanimous.
Thank you very much.
2372, consideration and appropriate action on proposed amendments to tax acquired property guidelines.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for having me here tonight and for the past 2 summers. It's been a great experience. As you're aware, the town has guidelines that provide a procedure for how the town should be managing properties it acquires in through the tax foreclosure process. In light of the recent Supreme Court case, Tyler versus Hennepin County, the Supreme Court found that the county violated the Fifth Amendment with keeping the surplus of a sale of a tax acquired property in Minnesota. This prompted the state legislature to pass a similar law, or pass a law in Maine that will require that municipalities offer the former owners of tax acquired properties the right to have their properties be sold with a realtor, and that to have municipalities return the excess proceeds of those sales to the former owner. So what we've done here is we've taken the new law into account to bring the current guidelines into compliance with the state law. I'm happy to, the biggest change is really just providing more a specific language directing the select board or town staff to the appropriate statutes passed by the state legislature. But of course, if you have any other specific questions, I'm happy to answer them to the best of my ability.
It's a lot, so if the town, before the town forecloses, it has to go to a realtor, put it on the market.
So what would happen is, as the law stands now, if the town, you all can still decide if you want to sell it. If you want to keep it for the town, then you don't have to do anything else as of now. But if the town decides to sell the property, you have to give the former owner the right to request that process. And so if the former owner says, yes, I want you to use this process, then you enlist a realtor and who sells it and so on. If they don't, then the town can continue using the same process with an advertised sale that it's already been using.
And the cost of realtor is deducted from the proceeds that would go back.
Yes. Yes, the sale, after the sale through that process, the town will keep any outstanding taxes, interest and associated fees and costs. So including the realtor, any mailing costs. The state also allows a 10% administrative fee to be kept for the town as well.
Seems like that realtor will be busy. Not here, we don't have any foreclosures, so, but I just,
Who selects a realtor again?
the owner just.
Okay, so it's not the town.
We can select a realtor, so I guess we could either put it out for a bid to see who wants
That was my
to do
concern.
whatever rate. And then the price it's listed at, according to the statute, is the amount it would sell it's estimated to sell for within 6 months. So the person that bought the property foreclosure can't insist that we pick some unrealistic price. But we're gonna need to make sure we can document in our file that we're gonna, Realtor said this is the price I expected to sell in 6 months for our protection.
Any other questions? I will make a motion that we amend the management of tax lien property guidelines as presented. Second. Motion seconded, all in favor, unanimous. Boaz, take us home. 2373, consideration any appropriate action on recommendations for disposition of certain tax acquired properties.
Well, I'm back. Last summer, one of my projects was to create the catalog of the town's tax acquired properties that you've seen, I think, 2 or 3 times at this point. In January, you all held a workshop where you solicited feedback from the public. And so we've taken the feedback we've all received throughout the past couple of months. And we have developed a few set of recommendations. Tonight, we're presenting only recommendations on some of the properties where the town attorney has felt comfortable recommending that we move forward with disposing of these properties. So the first chunk that we are recommending are properties that we recommend that the town keep because they have significant conservation or recreation purpose and they're listed in the packet. The second category is our properties that we recommend keeping. These 3 have significant drainage infrastructure that Public Works would find easiest to protect if they remain in the town name. Additionally, we received feedback at the workshop that one of these properties, a butter would actually prefer that the town doesn't sell because they've been maintaining it themselves and they would have to buy it to continue to have it look nice. The final category of property we recommend the town dispose of tonight is the former Robert Hill Road, David Drive subdivision. We believe the town attorney recommends or believes that has said that we can sell the property because in 2020, the town obtained a clean deed of a clean title to the properties, the parcels in that subdivision. And so there'd be no obligation to return the excess proceeds of the sale back to the former owner. It's worth noting for the subdivision that the approvals for the plans expired about 10 years ago. So there is not significant value in terms of a subdivision, but there has been a butter interest in some of the parcels for their own purposes. We would recommend that the select board accept bids for some or all of the parcel to ensure that the entire piece gets bought. And of course, happy to answer any questions.
If you can do more, so I'm not a fan of keeping any of these because it says potential recreation, or someone believes there's a significant value because it abuts a town forest. If there's abutters that are interested, I would rather see it go back to the taxes. One of the question I had on one of these that just wanted to. Now, Jonathan, sorry. If I get it, I'll get back to you. But there was a specific property I had a question about. Oh, so this here is the West Merrill Road. It talks about part of the largest unfragmented habitat block of the region, cumulatively 7,000 acres, contains an existing trail system. But it says keep because of conservation. But whose trail system is that? Is that currently a town trail system, or is that just over the years people have walked about on someone else's property and created trails?
I don't know. I took that from the Conservation Committee's report from about 10 years ago. But we can definitely find that information if you
And it just, and I'll say to the board, guys, because what I'm gonna talk about tonight is any of these that have a butter interest, and there's not a specific need by, I understand the drainage ones, keeping that. The ones, there's, I think, a water tower. But just the hope and prayer, we might do something with it one day to make our town forest larger. I mean, we're pretty forested. I'm sorry, I just don't feel that we have a need to continue to go. So to me, if our butters are interested, I would rather have a conversation with some of them.
I agree with that.
Yeah, unless there's some already established plan for particular property, I agree.
Yeah, I mean, if there's a plan, I'll sit and listen. Do any of these actually have a plan? I mean, I understand the drainage ones have a plan, but is this just a wish list?
I think it's just a list based on the recommendation that we received from the committees.
Well, that's what I'm saying, the committees are wishing, right?
Yeah, if I could elaborate, I can categorize the conservation ones pretty quickly, I think. The easiest is the right-hand column, 83 and 99 Cadance Road. Both abut our water tower. They have a severe grade to them and they're near water, so they're most likely unbuildable. And it would make the water tower property have some extra land next to it. They go basically between the water tower and the head of the Tide Park. So they would go next to some adjoining things. Murder Road is a landlocked place for ducks, basically. It's all wetlands. There has been some interest expressed, some butters in buying it. But it might also be useful for us later at some point to say, the state's bought a lot of land next to it for conservation of the Muddy River. So it might be useful to hold on to that, because you might be able to leverage it later, trading it in the state for something else rather than selling it to someone. And you really can't, this question about how well you can get to it and things. The Bay Park Drive one, as well as the Zero May Lane, are basically really narrow paths that are used for recreation purposes by bikes, ATVs, other things. The two that are larger pieces of land that, there could possibly be some people, or there is some abutter interest in, is the West Merrill Road and the Ford Road. So there's probably three categories of stuff there.
Right, and I was only referring, if there was known interest by abutters, I'm in favor of, having conversation, especially when, like Roland said, there's not a plan for something already. Even coming in here and saying maybe we could use it against the state to get something else. All right, that's somewhat of a begin, but the rest of this stuff just seems like, hey, let's add it on. And I'd rather see it on the text. Because I've never gotten a call from anyone that says, we really need to expand our town forest. So.
No, just in case there were stuff that you did want to deal with, I just thought a little more clarification.
Anyone have questions of Boaz before we debate here? Good job, Boaz.
Thank you.
Good job.
So now we need to decide how we want to break, because we got this proposed motion and I'm not in favor of that personally. You guys are, it'll pass, but particularly I think Mark said it was Ward Road and West Merrill, was it? Those two certainly have been written as have interest. There doesn't appear to be any plan involved with them. I would reserve those for now to talk to an abutter. If the abutter says no, then we jump, I'm not gonna say hold it, but if an abutter has an interest, then we could work something out, we're not gonna hand it away, but in my opinion.
I agree.
Yeah,
Let's see what others go for.
Okay.
So, excuse me.
Yeah.
Katie Lane. Do you have any finding information on that one?
Let's see. What was remember any details of what you did?
That's the small piece that abuts the front.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a small piece that is, abuts the Brunswick Topsham land trust property. I think they did express interest in it a while back.
It's about 10 feet wide next to the railroad tracks and the Cadance River, so it's not usable probably much of anything because it supports the railroad tracks. But Just a further note, the ones that we didn't bring tonight, as well as say West Merrill Road and Ward Road, if you decide you want to hold off on those, what we'll be doing is waiting for a lot of this, for the legislature to do more. The town attorney is expecting there's gonna be more changes in the law coming. We have, one of the pieces we didn't present tonight is Topaz Lane, which is basically a private driveway that this homeowners association stopped paying the taxes on. So we'll talk to some of the developer. We're gonna try to do with him what we did with the subdivision here, see if we can get him to give us a deed to it and waive his rights under this statute. In some of these other places that we might try to go to sell, if we can get the developer, the former owner to waive their rights, then we could try to go ahead with a sale. But the town attorneys advise us that absent that, right now, we don't want to actually sell property unless we've got we do have this for the former subdivision, but anything else, we'll just kind of keep working on basically. So other than the stuff that we decide to retain for conservation, drainage easements for this one place we propose to sell.
So back to Katie Lane, why wouldn't we want to sell the Brunswick Topsham Land Trust? They're gonna do the same thing we want to do.
Or they don't want to sell it, they want us to give it to them.
Oh.
And the town attorney's advised, he said you can keep things for conservation because you're not disposing of it.
Yeah.
But we could have liability under the new Supreme Court case. If we were to just give property in town with someone else without compensating the owner.
Okay.
There's an earlier version of the statute that was passed in June, actually was gonna make towns compensate owners for property they were keeping. So that's another reason we'd like to try to clean up this list as best we can. Because right now we have the ability, according to our town attorney, to keep these things. Some of these the towns had for 40 years. We take them off this list, categorize it as town owns property, no longer is foreclosed property, then we should be good. If they change the law next year and say towns now have to compensate people for pieces they want to keep. So that was one of the reasons we wanted to try to address some of these now.
All right, so let me look through this motion and see which ones and how to read them. Oh, no. So on the proposed motion that's on the memo in front of us, I'm gonna pull out, as I read it, I'm gonna take out West Merrill Road and Ward Road, and then the rest of them, I would say you follow as in the motion. So we sit and wait on those. So I make a motion that the following properties be retained by the town: 0 May Lane, R0263A, 21 Bay Park Drive, U18 201-A, 83 Cadance Road, R09-23, 99 Cadance Road, R209-26, Katie Lane, number rear, -R10-23, Murder Road, number rear, -R11-11, 2 Allen Street, U10A-3-A, 4 Thomas Avenue, U10A-7-A, 4 Thomas Avenue. All right, so I'll repeat, 4 Thomas Avenue, U10A-9-A. And that the following property be sold by the town, Roberts Hill Road, David Drive, former subdivision.
And you're saying Roberts with an S?
It is Roberts Hill, right? Yeah.
Wasn't an S on it, thank you.
Motion,
What did you do with the other two? Ways,
I just left them, so there's,
should they be retained by the town for now?
yeah, if we're not taking action, we're retaining.
They'll just remain on our list of tax acquired properties to be dealt with in the future.
Perfect. Sorry.
Seconded, okay.
Motion seconded, all those in favor? Unanimous. I make a motion to adjourn.
One question.
Oh, sorry, sure.
I think we need to table the approval of the minutes, we didn't have now a second, right?
Okay.
Need to what?
You don't put it on. Last meeting.
She wasn't even. Oh, that's true.
I was in here.
Right, Roland was in that one.
Actually, there was a thing in the Maine municipal put out a couple months or maybe 6 months ago. And it's been a common thought, you have to be present at a meeting to approve the minutes. But they said that legally, you don't, because the minutes are considered more of a ministerial act. So you're not necessarily attesting that you personally know that every word is accurate. So if you wanted to.
He's right. Sounds like we're Harry Potterish. So, I'm gonna make that motion to adjourn then, or you want to slow your, I already saying, motion made, seconded, I heard an absolutely, all those in favor. We're out. Thank you, everyone. What's that?